Those days when you make yourself a cup of coffee when you're meant to make tea. Not even like coffee. Hey kiddies, Jester here. Welcome back to the court. This week brought to you by BabyPatico. Last week I asked for suggestions on what the court should start to be about, which to make it a bit more interactive. And my friend, good friend BabyPatico, very prolific, that's the word, isn't it? Yeah, prolific. Very prolific commenter on my videos, suggested I talk about my favourite childhood game. By MacLeod, you're not making it easy on me, are you? Now, before we begin, I'm going to limit this a little bit to about the age I turned, about the time I turned 12 or 13. Because I figure that's childhood, although after that you're kind of a teenager. But for me in particular, after that, I wasn't so much, I'd become a real gamer, if that makes sense. And I think it'd be unfair to include games that I was taking seriously as a gamer at that point, because they would win outright, obviously, because I remember them so particularly fondly. But for the purposes of the question itself, we're going to stick to when I was about coming up to the age of 12, 13, because those games were my childhood. They're the games that I played as a child rather than as a gamer, if that makes sense. So to start with, when I was very, very little, I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4, we had a Pong machine, like one of the proper old ones. Little brick handheld thing with the dial on it, you know. Seriously, really old. And that disappeared when I was about 3 or 4. I do have memories of it, very, very vague memories. And you know, well, Pong was Pong. Can't really say much more about Pong than that. Then eventually the household device, gaming was always very big in my family, mostly thanks to my brother. We upgraded to an Atari at some point, and we had a lot of games on that. But I think we also at some point had a PC, possibly a Windows PC at some point in this same sort of pocket of time. Because some games that I remember, I don't think were ever on Atari. And for that matter, we may have had a Sega Mega Drive. I think my brother had a Sega Mega Drive, because we also had Golden Axe. But as well as Golden Axe, we also had games like Wolfenstein 3D, James Pond and James Pond 2, RoboCop, God, so many. The original Prince of Persia. Now, like I said, they may not have all been on the Atari. I think we had something else going on at the same time, but I'm remembering this pocket of time when we had the computer in the family room, because we didn't have anywhere else to put it. Now, about 94, I want to say, we had a loft conversion. We needed this space. There's so many kids in our family, and we were all living at home at this point. It was getting to a point now where some of us were too old to be sharing rooms still. So we had a loft conversion, had a new bedroom added in, and also my dad wanted his own little office space for him to use the computer for his work and stuff, and just his little office space. Ha! Like he was going to get that to himself. Because he moved the computer up there, of course he did. But then not long after that we upgraded to Windows 95, so if we did have a PC before that, which we must have done I think for Wolfenstein 3D, but at whatever point that was, we ended up with Windows 95, and it was a new computer, new format, everything was new. So all those kids got treated to games for it. I mean, there you go, that's Dad's error number 1 of his own little office space, and he let us play games on the frigging thing. Well done, Dad. Now I'm just thinking now, maybe that was when we were playing Wolfenstein 3D, rather than when it was downstairs. I really don't know. I was about, what, 6, 7 at the time? Give me a break. Now, like I said already, my brother was the big gamer in the house. Oh, he always was. He like my 2 older sisters, they obviously were the first ones to instigate getting devices, because they were old enough at the time. My brother was still a baby when we had the Pong machine in particular. Probably still fairly young when we originally got the Atari. I was probably not even born. But he definitely instigated the evolution of devices towards gaming that happened in the house from that point on. Definitely. He's definitely the one that inspired me to become a gamer. So when we had the Windows 95 PC put in place, he already had a Game Boy. And he loved fighting games. He had all the Mortal Kombats on there up to that point, which I think was actually all of them at that point. And then he also had things like, you know, the Super Mario Land or World or whatever it was called. 1, 2, all that kind of stuff. He had a bunch of games on that Game Boy. He loved that Game Boy, but I was never allowed to touch that. Thanks. So he was really into fighting games. So when we were able to get this new generation of gaming going on Windows 95 at the time, which for us was brand new, there was probably other consoles out there. I think the NES and the SNES already existed at this point, but we were late to those games. He was really into fighting games, so he got something called Rise of the Robots, which was pretty decent for its time. It was a, generic back and forth fighting game, these robots. I do remember a lot of glitches going on where you very clearly hit the bad guy, but nothing happened. But whatever. Time being what it was, time was what it was. My sisters got their own games, all that kind of thing. Well, the two oldest ones are a bit old by this point. I think they'd given up on gaming. But my other sister, she was between me and my brother. She got her own game. I think it was something called Magic Boy. I don't know, never tried it. But I very fondly remember the first PC game I had, proper one that I can remember being a PC game, was Dr. Drago's Madcap Chase. I loved this game. It had that elements of Monopoly and a bit of Mario Kart in there. So many things. It was a fantastic game. I would spend hours playing this game, and I was young enough not to have to worry about homework, so I could get away with playing for hours and hours and hours. Oh boy, did that change. And then eventually, like I say, we came late to it, but my brother did end up getting a SNES. And he got fighting games. He got Killer Instinct, of course he did. And he also got Super Mario Kart, which I think was the first Mario Kart. Maybe wrong. And he also had one of those plug-in cartridges where you could plug in your Game Boy games to it as well. That was fun. Now, I think it was about at this time when I got my own Game Boy. So I was finally allowed to play my own Game Boy. And my parents forced my brother to let me use his game cartridges. As long as I didn't touch his Game Boy itself, I was allowed to use the cartridges to play the games. So I started playing games like Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2. I had my own Super Mario Land 3, which was the Wario Land one, or it might have just been called Wario. Now that was a good game. Lost that cartridge. To this day, still do not know where, how, or why. And then, of course, not too much later, there was Pokemon Blue and Red. And eventually Yellow. But Blue and Red at this point in time. So much of my time was invested in playing those games. Training Pokemon, playing with friends, trading and battling, and seriously, in our generation, in like this, from anywhere between 20 to 30, 20 maybe a bit early, but anywhere in that sort of general pocket, who didn't play Pokemon Red and Blue? Seriously, if you call yourself a gamer and you did not play Pokemon Red and Blue, I question your earlier self-titling. It was awesome. A little bit later than that, my brother eventually upgraded to a PlayStation. We gave away the SNES to a local youth group, and my brother got a PlayStation. He got a few games on it, but the ones I remember most prominently were the original Crash Bandicoots. I think it was just 1 and 2 that we had. And also fighting games again. My brother did love his fighting games. We had Bloody Roar 2 and the original Soul Blade, which, by the way, is miles better than any of the Soul Caliburs have been. Fucking Soul Calibur, shove it up your ass. Now, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back is the one that sticks most clearly in my mind. I have very fond memories of playing that game. It's the one with that time warp portals, and you had to collect gems to do something. Neo was on your side for a while, but then there was another professor who turned out to be the real good guy. Spoilers, by the way. Like, you've not... Come on, this is like late 90s, if I'm not spoiling anything. And this is when I was like about 10, so I think, easily saying, between the handhelds with Pokemon and Crash Bandicoot 2 taking up so much of my time in life, these games were easily the precursors to what became a slow climb to real gamerhood, if that's a word. I can probably very comfortably say this is where it began, the climb to become a proper gamer. Especially since my brother ended up straying away from gaming for a while. I like to blame like school and college probably. He was of that age where it was all the important exams and all that kind of thing. So I inherited the PS. With all the games, all the accoutrements. I think I actually inherited basically all of his handheld games as well. I think he pretty much gave up everything. Which is really weird when you think about it, because he was a gamer. Eventually he came back, don't worry. But yeah, so I inherited pretty much every bit of gaming tech that was in the house, because I didn't have to worry about exams yet. I was still young enough not to have to worry about that kind of stuff yet. I was very, very fortunate. So the PS was mine. I'm not talking PS1, I'm talking original PS, which was the PS1, but not the diddy little one that they purposely called PS1 that came way after. It's like how the Xbox called this one the Xbox One. It's not the Xbox One. It's 720 would have been a much better name. So I think this was the year that I turned 12, maybe? 2000? Something like that. And this is the year I got Final Fantasy IX. And also the year that Pokemon Yellow came out, now I think about it. And I could very easily tell you that Final Fantasy IX would be my one choice of the best game of my childhood. Final Fantasy IX has not been beaten by any of the other Final Fantasy titles. I personally would say it's better than 7. I'm probably going to get flack for that, but that's what I believe. I could very easily say that is my favourite childhood game of all time. But, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not going to count that. When I was between 12 and 13, that's when I started to take games really, really seriously, and Final Fantasy was the first one. So I kind of feel like that's unfair. Because after that point, I remember every game I played, and I remember how good they were and how seriously I took them as a gamer. But I want this discussion to be about what my favourite games as a child really were. You know, the kind of games where you think back, and you don't generally remember them until they pop into your head, and you're like, oh my god, of course. Final Fantasy IX is not one of them. Final Fantasy IX is firmly placed in my memory as the first game that really set me down the path of being a gamer. So it doesn't count, even though it is a fan-fucking-tastic game. As was Pokemon Yellow, although I still prefer Blue and Red. So it comes down to what my actual final choice of favourite game is. I've given you a brief history of what my personal gaming history actually is. From the Atari all the way up there to the PS1. Wow, okay, I'm old. And I guess the final choice is pretty obvious, really. I mean, do I really need to tell you? Tell you what, pause this video and put in the comments. No, that's not going to work, so I won't know if you're cheating or not. But honestly, how could my favourite childhood game not be Pokemon Red and Blue? Yeah, fair enough, you could say that's a really obvious or boring choice, but obvious choices are obvious choices for a reason, right? I mean, come on, it's Pokemon Red and Blue! That is my childhood right there. That is the entirety of my childhood right there. Or at least a very large chunk of it. So much time spent training, fighting, battling, going through this game over and over again. Didn't just play it once. I very rarely play games through again. But Pokemon, obviously, you play over and over and over again. To have a different party is a completely different experience. Well, maybe not entirely, but kind of. I would cheat after a point when I got so far into it that I'd completed it so many times doing it normally, I ended up cheating. I'd have friends harbour the starter Pokemon for me as soon as I was able to trade them out, so that I could start the game again and get all 3 of them with the trading experience boost, don't forget. So I'd have all 3 starters with that boost for my whole playthrough right from the get-go. So from level 5 with this trading boost all the way up till I hit the Elite 4, and I had 3 starters, and then I'd have other 3 filler Pokemon. Sometimes there'd be ones I actually wanted on a wood train, or sometimes they'd just be literally just filler spaces. A few favourites, Pikachu obviously, Drowsy, I really like Drowsy, Growlithe, if I had the chance to get him early enough. Speaking of which, I would also do that. I'd get a friend who was already so far into the game to catch a Pokemon that I wouldn't meet until much later in the game, and get him to trade it into me when I was still early on in the game. Trading boost to the XP, and just having that Pokemon from an early stage. Come on now! I mean, who doesn't love Growlithe anyway? It's a dog that breathes fire. Duh. And tiger stripes on top of that. And then don't forget Missing No. Can't forget Missing No. That was the best cheat. The easiest cheat. Do people put those things in on purpose? I suppose back then. I really don't know, actually. So yeah, there you have it, BabyPatico and everybody else watching. Pokemon Red and Blue. Easily the favourite. I mean, if you're of like my general age area, I'll say between 23 and 30, I question your right to call yourself a gamer if you did not play those games and like them. I'm probably going to get flack for saying that, because there'll be loads of purist gamers out there that will say, nah, they were so mainstream, or nah, they were so popular, or nah, they were so easy, linear, whatever, you know, purist gamers decide to, hipster gamers basically. I'm probably going to get flack for saying that if you didn't enjoy them, you're not a real gamer, and I'm kind of half serious. course, you can be a real gamer and not have played those games, especially if you're a younger gamer. Although you should have played some of the other generations. I carried on the generations to a point. There comes a point where you're too old even for Pokemon. Although I do really want X and Y. But yeah, they was the most favourite childhood game right there for you. I've given you some of examples of ones that were very important to me as a child. But Red and Blue, easily. Easily. So thanks for joining me today, kidders. I've been Jester. You've been awesome. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you see and you want to see more. Also check out my narratives over on jesterconceptions.blogspot.co.uk. And I will see you through the week.